This is the last part of my 3-part series on how to go from beginner to fluent in any language of your choosing. That means that this is going to tackle the last step of how to finally become fluent in your target language. By fluent, it just means that you're able to use the language effortlessly in any situation that you might find yourself in. If you're new here and are wondering who I am, then hello, I'm Nick and I've been studying Portuguese for the past 7 years. I've reached the level of fluency and I'm currently working on improving even more, while also studying French. This video is, as usual, going to be divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is on the goals and how to reach them. Part 2 is on how to speed up the process. And part 3 is on what you do after you've reached fluency in your target language. Being able to use the language effortlessly is a subjective thing. It looks different for whoever happens to achieve it, and it might therefore be hard to measure the success of it. What I would suggest instead is making your way towards a working vocabulary of about 2,500 high frequency words, and another 1,000 words that you find yourself using frequently when you discuss subjects that are important to you. This sounds like a lot compared to the 1,000 words that I set as the goal for the last video, but the task of becoming fluent in another language is not something that is done quickly. In the last video, I talked about watching series that you'd already watched in order to make it easier for you. You don't need to focus too much on this anymore. You should now either be able to watch anything or you should be getting to that point. So start watching whatever you can find in your target language that you might find interesting. When it comes to books, I would suggest being a bit more careful, as that process is usually a lot slower and it therefore might become boring quicker if it isn't done at the right level. I suggested manga to begin with, as that is the literature that I would consider the perfect mix of simplified language and literature that is made for older readers. But now I would move on to actual books. My first suggestion would be books that are written in the first person point of view. If you're reading books that were written in the first person point of view, you will still not be encountering as many descriptions or filler words as you would with other books. But it is still going to be a lot more than you were getting with manga. After you've read a series or two like that, then feel free to transition to other books. Don't feel like you have to read books that were originally written in your target language. Books are special. They go through a strict process when it comes to translations. The quality is usually really good. If you want grammar tips, then this is the time where you should be noting down the nouns and adjectives that keep showing up. This is where you will be picking up the majority of your new words. Hi there. If you're looking for either a customized plan that is going to work for you or private lessons applying the systems that I use for my studying, then send me either an email or a message on Instagram. Both of those are linked below. Enjoy the rest of the video. As I said in the intro, part 2 is on speeding up. So you've now reached a level where you're able to follow most conversations without having to pause and rewind stuff to be able to understand what's going on. That's a really good point to get to, but it is also usually the point where language learning becomes a bit boring and you either stop completely or you consider switching to another language. This is just because you can't see your progress anymore. There is this really useful trick that I picked up that I used all the time while studying Portuguese, and I'm sure I will be using it with my French as well eventually. I just haven't gotten to that point yet. The trick is to simply speed up whatever it is you're doing in your target language. What do I mean by this? It means that when I'm watching any video on, for instance, YouTube, I have the option of increasing the speed of the video up to double. You can do the same thing on Netflix, up to 1.5 times speed, and with the right browser extensions, either on Chrome or some other web browser with access to the same extensions, you can do the same thing on Disney+. Obviously, I don't expect for you to be able to read at 2x the speed or watch series just right off the bat, but with the reading, if you're able to really sit down with a book and you have access to the audiobook at the same time, I suggest tracing it with your finger and you'll find that you're able to read a lot quicker. The reason why speeding up the learning like this is so important is because it helps mitigate the feeling that you're slowing down. Especially if you're just learning a language for fun, which was the reason why I started this journey of my own. You're going to be studying a lot more, you're motivated, and you're bound to feel a lot more motivated if you can notice how you're progressing rather quickly. And speeding up the videos and the reading that you're doing is therefore likely to keep you motivated, even when you have to study that much more to actually make progress. Even if you're going to be feeling a bit weird in the beginning from consuming content that is sped up. This last part is going to be on what you decide to do after you have reached fluency in your target language. In my opinion, you have 3 choices, and they all depend on what you're going to be using the language for. You can choose to stop studying the language and decide that you're done with language learning altogether, or you can decide that you're done with the language that you've been studying and you can move on to another language. I do think that if you were learning a language for fun, that it is a waste to stop after just learning one language. Especially considering that the process is going to be that much quicker the next time that you go through it in order to learn another language. I would therefore always choose to either go for learning another language or the option that I'm going to be suggesting now. The last option is for you to reach the level of a native speaker. This sounds close to impossible, and most people, they don't reach that level. This isn't impossible, but it also isn't easy. Most people don't aim for the level of a native speaker, either because they are satisfied with where they are, or because they are unsure of how to do it. If you're already satisfied, then I wouldn't bother, as it is a long process where it frequently seems like you just aren't making any progress at all. If it does sound interesting to try to reach the level of a native speaker, I am currently working on that part myself in Portuguese. I'm still quite far away from that, but there are some tips that I picked up, and thus I figured that the next video that I would make would be my tips and tricks that I use to improve beyond fluency. Now, if that sounds interesting, then stick around on the channel, and I'll see you next week. And until then, best of luck with your studies.